Have you ever made a mistake so big you thought your life was over? 3 years ago, I lost $300,000 of my company's money on a single bad decision. Today, that same mistake has turned into a business that generates millions. But this isn't about the money. It's about how our biggest failures can become our greatest teachers. Let me take you back to that day. I was 29, working as a financial analyst at a major investment firm, had a corner office, managed a billion-dollar portfolio, thought I knew everything. Then came the trade that changed everything. I misread a decimal point. One tiny dot cost my firm $300,000 in less than an hour. I still remember my boss's face when I had to tell him. The disappointment, the anger, the disbelief. By afternoon, I was packing up my office. By evening, my career in finance was effectively over. No firm would touch me after a mistake that big. That night, sitting in my apartment, staring at my last paycheck, something interesting happened. I started analyzing exactly how I'd made that mistake. Not just the decimal point, but the whole system that allowed one tiny error to cause such massive damage. I spent the next week creating a verification system that would catch similar errors, not just for decimal points, but for any critical financial data entry. It was basically therapy for me, trying to fix what I'd broken. Then a former colleague called. He'd heard about my system and wanted to know if it could work for his new firm. Turns out, these kinds of expensive mistakes were surprisingly common in finance. My catastrophic error wasn't unique. It was just nobody wanted to talk about them. Using my severance pay, I built the system into proper software. Called it ErrorGuard. First client? My old firm. They didn't want me back as an analyst, but they desperately needed a way to prevent others from making my mistake. Word spread in the financial community. Turned out, every firm had horror stories about decimal points, misplaced zeros, or transposed numbers. My mistake wasn't just a mistake. It was a problem that needed solving. 6 months later, we had 10 clients. By year 1, 50 major financial institutions were using ErrorGuard. Today, our software prevents over $50 million in potential errors every month across 200 financial institutions. Last year's revenue? $4.2 million. But here's what's really interesting. We've expanded beyond just catching errors. That initial mistake taught me something profound about how humans interact with critical data. Now we're developing AI systems that don't just prevent mistakes. They predict where they're likely to happen. You know what's funny? I keep the termination letter from my old firm framed in my office. Right next to it, the first error our software caught, a $2 million mistake that never happened because of my original mistake. The biggest lesson wasn't about double-checking decimal points. It was about how we view our failures. Every mistake is trying to teach us something, if we're humble enough to learn from it. If you're sitting there right now, dealing with a massive mistake, feeling like your career is over, remember this. Sometimes our biggest failures are just our biggest opportunities wearing a really good disguise. This channel, Beyond Stories, is about people who found success in unexpected places. If you want to hear more stories like this, hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment about a mistake that taught you something valuable. Sometimes sharing our failures helps others see their own mistakes differently. See you in the next video.